Let's bring in my good friend, Dr. Joe Congini, Sports Medicine Center, Akron Children's Hospital. Dr. Joe, good morning, my friend. What do you have for us this morning?
Hey, Ray. I just wondered if you have seen and talked to some extent about the Ohio State football player, football star Harry Miller, and his very powerful description of kind of what he's lived through with depression and even suicide ideation and suicide attempts. Have you gotten a chance to speak about that?
I have not yet, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very, very moving. It just really came up about this week. He was on the Today Show, and that's now gone viral. I know that there's almost any platform you can look at this 9-minute interview with him. Very, very emotional, very, very stirring message that he has. And it's really, really worth a look for young people and for young athletes. He talks a little bit about life with depression that he battled through. Very, very emotional, the Today Show interview that he did. But he did it with great humility. A lot of people are saying, to him how brave he is and other things. He said, I don't know, call me brave. He said, really, just call me honest. He said, I guess being honest when it's not easy to be honest maybe would be brave. But he, a year or so ago, went in to see Coach Day and spoke to him about his intention to kill himself. And he had scars on his wrists and his throat. And immediately, of course, they got him in at Ohio State to get some help with that. And it's just so, I think he thinks so indicative of a lot of people that are just quiet and live with this. He was an Ohio State lineman, had worked his way up to a starter. He was a 5-star recruit and was headed towards being all Big Ten, maybe all American. And then the other part of it, he was a 4.0 student, still is, in the mechanical engineering, one of the most difficult majors down at Ohio State. Going back to high school, he was valedictorian of his high school class in Georgia. And he even had undergone some treatment as a youth, as a young kid, but in high school, it seemed to be better. He seemed to do better and do okay. But some of the pressures of college, and particularly college football, led him to some real significant issues with depression. And talking about this issue of suicide attempts and suicide ideation, we know that it's an epidemic amongst our young people today, and it's something that we really seem to struggle to get our arms around right now, Ray. There is the latest statistics seem to show that about 20% of college students think about harming or killing themselves, the suicide ideation. About 65% in college know someone who attempted suicide or died by suicide. 49% were diagnosed with or treated for depression in college. And with college athletes, it's very similar statistics. And so it is now the number 2 cause of death in college students, number 3 cause of death in college athletes through the NCAA. And we've kind of watched as those numbers have gone up. And on the medical side, really struggle to kind of find what are some of the reasons why, what are some of the root causes, what can we do to try to prevent these things, because later on they're very difficult. And I know myself in a long career of 30-plus years, I didn't see this early on in my career, and it's something that now I've had to deal with several times in the last couple of years of my career. And we're just not very well equipped about what the next step is. And so having to get people to those people in our mental health areas that have greater expertise is really the next step. But in a community even like Akron, Ohio, even at Akron Children's Hospital, there just are not enough mental health professionals for all the people that we see. I know one of my struggles is getting people in a timely fashion when we're worried about them. And the biggest thing acutely in the short run, Ray, is getting a suicide risk assessment. It's very complex, but it's really hard to know how high that risk is. We have a unit in our emergency room called the PERC unit, and it is run by our behavioral health department, and it's available for people from our community. there's a national suicide prevention lifeline that people can reach somebody 24/7, 365 days a year with a phone call. That number is 1-800-273-8255, and 8255 is for talk. And just somebody would come on the other line and talk to somebody who's really going through a crisis, and if they don't have anybody to talk to. But this is a very, very moving interview, and I really strongly suggest people that are involved with teenagers, with college students, with athletes, look at this short, I think, 8 or 9 minute video on Harry Miller, a guy that had it all. He's very emotional through this talk, and he really ends it with God bless those who love, God bless those who weep, and God bless those who hurt. And he talks about a whole generation of people that are hurting silently that we don't even know about. So we really need to, I just really call on our medical community to try to continue to work on doing a better job with this epidemic.
Great stuff this morning, Joe, and really point on as well. You're seeing this in so many different athletic arenas, and you're seeing, and I mentioned this earlier this morning, you're seeing a lot of younger athletes, even as they progress through college and into the pros, bow out early in their careers because so many people think of them as athletic machines. But really, mental strain and the stress has caused them to reassess their lives. We saw it yesterday with the number 1 ranked tennis player in the world, Ash Barty from Australia, announced her retirement at the age of 25. And she was saying the mental anguish and the stress. We saw it in the Olympic Games as well with the U.S. gymnastics team. So many of these young athletes stepping aside for their mental health reasons. And you're spot on, Joe, with your diagnosis again.
Yeah, we look in from the outside and we say these kids have it all when it comes to the sports part, their life, academically, many of them, but we just can't understand some of the pressures they're under. And the really concerning part is those that have stayed silent about it. And so we really applaud Harry Miller for opening up, and it would be worth people that work with young athletes and young kids in college to see this interview.
No doubt about it. Joe, great stuff this morning. Thanks for the visit, my friend.
Okay, Ray. Have a great week. Thanks.
You too. Dr. Joe Congini, Sports Medicine Center, Akron Children's Hospital. He's been on the air with me for, over 20 years here on The Morning Show.